Hey, I'm Dr. Wolf, veterinarian and food therapist for pets, and today I'm sharing with you 3 popular pet food brands I would never feed to my pets. When it comes to choosing a pet food, it is really easy to focus on the front of the bag, the fancy labeling, and even the ingredient list. But unfortunately, these things really don't tell us whether that food is high quality, safe, or appropriate for your pet. So as I walk you through these 3 brands that I personally avoid, I'm gonna share with you the why behind each one. We're gonna cover things like marketing, the macronutrient composition, and safety of pet food. So stick around till the end to get to the juicy stuff and hit that subscribe button for more pet nutrition and wellness content. First up is Acana. In my opinion, the marketing on this bag can be a bit misleading to the average consumer. We can see really appealing terms here like premium, 60% animal ingredients, and that the first 2 ingredients are raw or fresh beef and pork. Where it starts to get a little hairy is when we look at the fine print at the bottom of the bag. So just after where we see the claim that this food contains 60% animal ingredients, we can see a tiny little 1. And when we look down at that fine print, we can see that this number is approximate and derived from the unprocessed state of the ingredients. What that means is that they're weighing the meat before it's cooked. And meat has a really high water content. And since the pet food ingredients have to be listed from heaviest to lightest, meat is naturally gonna rise highest on the list, even if that amount of meat shrinks significantly after processing. So having meat listed first doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be a meat-dense diet. This product in particular is actually composed of 30% carbohydrates. And while I don't consider that to be a really excessive amount, it may be higher than one expects based on the way this food is marketed. We also want to look out for something called ingredient splitting. This is where a pet food company will take one ingredient, peas for example, and split that into multiple components like pea protein, pea starch, and pea fiber. This again allows each of those components to fall lower on the list. They may even add multiple forms of different types of ingredients like lentils, peas, and chickpeas. And this ingredient list is the perfect example of ingredient splitting. We can see that they have red lentils, pinto beans, green peas, green lentils, chickpeas, yellow peas, and lentil fiber and pea starch. So not only do they have one type of pea and one type of lentil, but multiple types of lentils and multiple types of peas. So if we were to actually combine all of these different legumes together, the weight of those legumes would probably rise higher on the list. But that wouldn't be as appealing as if we have meat as the first and second ingredient. When I'm picking a pet food, I really highly value transparency and honest marketing. I don't want to see ingredient splitting, and I don't want to see misleading marketing on the front of the bag. If I do, those are immediate red flags for me, and it's just simply not a brand I'm going to feel comfortable feeding to my pet. Next up, Stella & Chewy's. My concern lies in the macronutrient composition of their diets, especially for dogs. For example, their super beef dinner patties are composed of about 46% protein and 37% fat on a dry matter basis. Given that over 60% of dogs are overweight or obese, this macronutrient composition is not going to be appropriate for the majority of dogs. It's really common to hear that carbs are going to make your dog fat and they don't need carbs at all, so feed them these really high protein, high fat diets. And while it is true that dogs don't have a biological requirement for carbohydrates in the diet, they actually do play an important role, like providing prebiotic fibers to feed good gut bacteria and keep your dog feeling full longer, supplying additional vitamins and minerals in the diet, and boosting your pet's antioxidant intake, which are primarily going to come from fruits and vegetables. Of course, not all carbs are created equal, and there are healthier options to choose from, but carbs aren't inherently bad, especially when fed in moderation. On the other hand, diets like this that are really high in protein and really high in fat could potentially pose an issue like weight gain or pancreatitis in susceptible dogs. And while these types of diets may work for some dogs, they're not going to be appropriate for every single one. And certainly not if your dog is obese prone or overweight. This is why it is so incredibly important that every single pet has a custom nutrition plan made for them. And that plan should be revised every single year as conditions and recommendations can change. Let's say, for example, you have a Yorkie or a Schnauzer who's genetically going to be prone to developing pancreatitis. We don't want to feed them a diet that's ultra high in protein and ultra high in fat. That's only going to increase their risk. So it's really important to know what's right for your specific dog so you can take a proactive approach and prevent health issues down the line. I could talk all day about how to customize and optimize your pet's nutrition, but I will save that for another video. And for now, we'll just jump into the final pet food brand that I would never feed, and it is Darwin's. As a veterinarian, I don't recommend the use of DIY DIY homemade raw pet food because of the risk of foodborne illness. Commercial pet food brands can be a safer option, but it's really important to choose brands who have very high manufacturing standards and safety practices. In the case of Darwin's, the FDA has issued multiple public advisories between the years of 2018 and 2024 after detecting pathogens like Salmonella and Listeria in certain lots of Darwin's pet food. Darwin's has posted several memos on their website in response to these advisories, but what they said in those memos and the way they said it is very concerning to me. In 2018, their response was, "We think that the zero tolerance standard that the FDA has set for pathogens in pet food is both unrealistic and unnecessary." And in 2023, they said, "There are no risks to pet health. We believe the FDA's action is wholly unnecessary and ultimately based on flawed regulatory decision making." And similarly, in 2024, when Salmonella and Listeria were found, they said that there are no risks to pet health and that the FDA's public notice was wholly unnecessary. While dogs and cats may be less susceptible to foodborne pathogens like Salmonella, Listeria, and E. coli than people are, they're not immune, and there is a possibility that your pet can get really sick if they come in contact with these pathogens. For me personally, I value companies that take an abundance of caution, recall affected products, and take these advisories seriously. Based on their responses, this is just not a pet food that I would ever feel safe or confident about feeding my pets or recommending to my patients. These 3 pet food brands are incredibly popular. I see multiple pets on these diets every single week, and I always feel really bad because I know that pet parents are just wanting to do what's best for their pet. They're picking a food that they really truly feel is healthy and safe and high quality and appropriate for the pet. And in a lot of cases, even though the intention is to do what's best for their pet, marketing can be really persuasive and it can make it really hard to see through all the hype. Like I mentioned before, it is incredibly important to know and understand what to feed your pet and how to feed them based on their unique needs, because nutrition is not one size fits all. What's right for a Yorkie is not going to be the same thing as what's right for a Great Dane. And this is why I've put together so many different resources for you guys, like this video, as well as my mini course, The Perfect Pet Food Blueprint, which walks you step by step through the process of investigating pet food companies, decoding confusing pet food labels, evaluating ingredient lists, and choosing the right brand and formula for your pet. You get lifelong access to on-demand lessons with unbiased guidance and formula selection tips to ensure your pet gets the ideal diet based on their age, lifestyle, and health goals. I have had so many pet parents tell me they've spent hours and hours online researching what to feed their pet, still ending up super confused because everything's conflicting. So I created this mini course to give you confidence and clarity about what to feed your pet. So if that's something that seems helpful for you, you can learn more about the mini course through the link in the description. And if there are other pet food brands or topics you'd like me to cover in future videos, drop those in the comments. See you next time.